This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this.
Hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Abby Wheeler. Today I am here with Niiamah Ashong of Outliers Edge podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today, Niiamah. Just dive into your story, your journey a little bit more, and the why behind what you do. You're a pretty effective coach, I hear. Someone who really helps bring out what your clients really want and helps them get those things. I hear you have a pretty good track record of doing that.
Well, yeah, I'm even going to step into this. Firstly, Abby, it's great to be in conversation with you. I'm super excited for wherever this conversation lies. I don't mind owning this here, and I have to own it because regardless of where, if I have a thing about being in integrity, it's recently risen to one of my top 3 values. It might be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be in integrity with it. I am really good at what I do when it comes to quote unquote coaching. I'm good with spending, and I think what it is that I do is at its core, people feel seen, celebrated, and valued for who they are, and to translate those experiences into real world context for them, so they can apply it in the work that they're doing, apply it to their businesses, apply it to the way that they show up as a leader in their organizations and their family, and even for themselves. And that I think the thing there is, the differentiator for me is it's not just that I'm able to help people see it, but I'm able to help them believe it and actually just embrace and adopt it and then leverage it in their lives. And that last part is actually, it's more challenging than it seems. But I get really excited to work with people on this here, especially those people who have non-traditional backgrounds, people who oh, what are you doing here? How did this work out for you? There's unorthodox success is where I love to play, because it's at that point, who else has a path for you there? Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. Niiamah, when I think of you, I think of energy, passion, excellence, intention, commitment. Maybe the intention and commitment is that integrity thing coming through. Community and impact. Do those things feel true for you? How does that sit with you?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I got really stuck when you said excellence, everything else is just kind of washing over me. When you said excellence, I think that's something that a part of me recognizes, but it was harder than all the other things to receive. I'm asking myself why. And I think part of it for me is, when I think excellence, I think polished. I think excellence, I think super prepared. Every word is meticulously chosen. I actually I can feel my stomach and my body trying to align up to think of excellence for that place. But what feels good in my body right now, when I really think about excellence for me, it's I'm truly, I think the commitment part comes out. I'm really committed to just fully being there for the person that's there, and to become awesome at whatever this craft is that I'm building. That part feels really, really wonderful. In alignment with it there. I get curious, when you think of excellence, it would be a huge service to me to know what comes to mind for you.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying that, I'm thinking, well, true. That could be, a way that you perceive that word. Then the other word, authentic, comes to mind for you as well. Right. I think you're both of those things. I think you're excellent and authentic at the same time. It's not that you're super polished. It's that you show up with intention, with passion, who you are, and you just exude that excellence. It's easy, it's natural, it's innate in who you are.
I really appreciate that. Because I think it speaks to, you talk about the authenticity. I haven't used that word in a while because I'm other people ruined it. It's right? It is exactly what it is, but it's been ruined. But there's a component of this that I think actually sits through. And I think this is also part of why that might have been harder for me to receive, because I've been actively creating for years, putting myself in positions to allow what is authentic, what is natural, what is genuine for me to be the things that I focus on. And so I think there's an element of this. I'm like, well, I'm just living my life. And I'm just like, kind of like you said, like I'm just showing up. But I've carved out the places where me showing up doesn't naturally bring excellence with it. So I get that. I cannot like, I get that, like, as you're saying, I'm like, oh, I'm probably closer to my zone of genius, like the place where I really shine, than I'm actually giving myself credit for. And from that, like, I appreciate that reflection. It gives me a chance to like just really take that in.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's because you're really living into your purpose too.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's hear more about that. I want you to share a little bit of what Outliers Edge is in your mission behind it. What are you here to do with your coaching work and your business?
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually really interesting. I like when you say this, I find like I'm someone of either multiple missions or multiple purposes, but it all kind of boils down to something similar. I think at the core of it here, I'm here on this earth to help people be seen, celebrated, and valued for who they are. Right. Like that really feels true. For a while, I thought that was coming, that came through a mission of I bring together a truly inclusive and empowered world. I think that feels really, that's like, I think about like I lead a movement called the World Joy Movement. And it was the premise of that was like not to have a whole movement where instead of reaching our problems and coming to it with violence, maybe even like self-inflicted violence, like self-sabotage, like using like negative words towards ourselves, so on and so forth, right? Instead of approaching it with violence, we can actually come to it from a place of joy and creation and such, right? So instead of there's world war and there's world peace, but I'm like, world peace doesn't seem like enough. It seems like we'll just be like kind of content next to each other, but nothing's like, what would happen if we took it to the positive instead of just the neutral? And that's where like world joy came from. So I think in overall, like as someone with multiple missions, I actually realized like they are multiple, but they all kind of cascade or there's the variations of the same thing, right? In order to bring together a truly inclusive and empowered world, all I got to do is help people be seen, celebrated, and valued, within Outliers Edge, which is the business that I'm like using as one of the vehicles of change that I have here. Outliers Edge, our mission is to, now that I have World Joy Movement, I had this other thing in my head. So let me bring it in. At Outliers Edge, we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. Champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. It's so interesting. I can say to you right now, it took me like 6 months to a year to get this to the point where it's just like, this is what we do. When I first started saying it, I was like, who the heck do I think I am to be like what, how? But this is what we do here at Outliers, and we find our thoughts are, if we're shaping the leaders, if we're working with the champion of leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity, these are the people who have to by definition almost be an outlier. Because the leaders who are leading the current era of humanity, they can be right, like just like everyone else. They're following everyone else's best practices. They're doing all the things that we already know. But by definition, if we're going to go to somewhere new, then we have to go find the people who look at the world differently and support them in there. But it's a scary place to be like, hey, I see a different view of the future than you do, or then what is the status quo? Mm-hmm. And I love to like just champion them to make sure that like they're able to stay on mission and bring out the glory of whatever that vision is, based on their experiences. Does that make sense when I bring that in?
Yeah, there's a lot there, but makes a lot of sense. Like you said, it's multifaceted and layered, right? But at the core, you've been able to drill down all of that into one succinct line, which I really love. It shows just the work and intention you put into it. Helping people feel seen, valued, celebrated. That's
for who they are, right?
For who they are.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I mean, this is decades worth of things. Like it's what do I do when I'm like hanging out with my friends, or when I'm like talking to a coworker, or like, it's not just the work that I'm doing. It's the I couldn't help it if I tried. Because there are times where I left one of my last organizations, and they made a video, like a goodbye video for me. And I was so ready for this goodbye video and to talk about all the different projects we took on and all the accomplishments and the things that we achieved. And no one mentioned any of it. And it floored me, Abby. It totally floored me, because all I got was like, I got how I made them feel, and I recognize, like, out of all the things that we've done, like, what people remember is how you make them feel. And that was something really important for me. And so that's where it's boiled down to a sentence, but like, it's honestly just like, it's only been about 2 months since I started saying that out loud. It's not, it comes to me because it's naturally me, but like, the process of actually just getting to the point of like, this is what I do, and it's enough. Can seem really like fluffy and frou-frou, like, be seen, celebrated, and valued. Like, okay, this guy's off on his own world. But the reality is like, this is what is the most, like, at the core of everything that I do. I accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
But part of why I'm able to do that is because these 3 values always shine through.
Mm-hmm. That's so big. And that brings me back to that word excellence too. I mean, you have had a pretty amazing career. You have been really successful. You are able to do all of those things, but you come to this point where you realize that's not that important. What's the most impactful is the way how I show up in the world, how I make people feel.
Yeah, I had a call with my team earlier today, and one of the things I was saying was just like, look, we're not talking about the specifics of what needs to get done right now, because we've gotten a lot of our foundational things done. You're amazing at getting things done. We can get things done. I'm not worried about that. I can come with a new project and it'll come to life within a week. Right now, what we need to focus on is who we are being as we are doing it. Right. And I think that's the case here. Like, the people I work with, the leaders that I champion, like, they can get things done, but oftentimes we feel like they tell me that, they feel like they're at risk if they actually, like, let their thoughts out, if they spoke truth to the manager, to the power, if they led their team, like, from the joyful place that they want to, let's say, it feels like they're all at risk, and I think that this is it's the part of it that I think, like, I like to ground myself in. Like, the work I do is life or death. People's livelihoods feel like they're at stake, and being you is one of the most dangerous things that, like, it can feel like one of the most dangerous things on this planet. I mean, to be 1 in 7.9 billion people, to be just the only one, it's incredible. It can be lonely, isolating, and if there's no one else out there with you or like you, then, like, it can feel like it can just feel really risky. And I love to take that in, to help people be able to like, know that, like, you can be, we are all just 1 in 7.9 billion, but we can be that together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Tell me a little bit more about the folks, the types of folks that you are serving, those outliers, trailblazers, the first, the ones, the only, whatever you want to call them, Mavericks, whatever you want to call them. Can you speak to, from your personal experience, why you feel called to serve this group of people? And I think it probably also ties into what you just said. It's dangerous to be one of you, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. All right. So if I'm going to speak, so overall, I'd say I work with outliers, right? These are people who deviated from the norm. They're still part of the data set. They're still with everyone else, but they've been able to get phenomenally different and more successful results than others and their other counterparts, right? But let's make this real. You asked me about, like, from my personal experience, like, why is this important to me? So I when I really think about it, I think it's because, like, I was born, I'm first generation American. My parents come from Ghana, West Africa, and I grew up. I was the firstborn. Like, we're all in this new country together. I was born in America, so I grew up as, honestly, an African American, right? But as I was growing up, I remember a conversation. My dad sat me down one day. I was about, like, 7 years old, and he's like, there was something happening on TV, And he really wanted to make like a clear distinction for me. I grew up like right outside of one of the most dangerous cities in America at the time that I was growing up, and he's like, he didn't want me to be involved like on the streets. He didn't want me to like pick up on some things. So he came to me, and he also didn't want me to like talk back to my parents, which were things that he saw like that were happening on TV and such. And he said, "Look, Niiamah, I want you to know this. Like, you may look like the people around you, but you're not like them, right? You're Ghanaian. You're like the people around you. They're Black, and their history has been stolen from them, right? Through slavery here in the U.S., right? You can track your lineage all the way back to like the very, very beginning. You know, you come from a different set of values, a different set of cultures, and even though you see people who look like you, just know that like you're not like them, right?" The challenge with that, though, Abby, for me was that it was different than my dad, because he was born in Ghana and raised there. Like, right. I'm like there was a new lineage that was starting with me, you know? And so I walked around life like knowing that I wasn't quite Black, like I wasn't Black American, but I also wasn't Ghanaian, you know? Like I was this other thing. And it took me down this path of trying to like never really feeling like I belonged, and choosing to find different ways to at first I started to fit in, but then I realized like, oh, that's not my thing. Like, I can fit out. I could be like the class clown. I'm the one, like, you call me in because I'm going to go and do all these random and wacky things. Well, that was the way I lived my life for a very long time. And it wasn't until I turned about 30 that I actually became a Black man. And it was in that moment, like there was a movie I watched, and I realized how much of me, the success that I had built, the past careers that I've had, the friends that I had made, the ways I was moving forward in my career, all of that was like based on me being quote unquote Nemo, and showing up in a way that had like adopted white culture as a way of me being able to like move forward. And essentially I had hidden and masked myself behind what I thought would keep me safe and keep me in the game. I'm like, I can't have you see me as a Black person. If you do, then everything that I've been building might go away. All right. And there's more that I can share about that there. It's like I do talk about it there, but I think that really started to dawn on me that like, oh, the success I think I'm creating is not actual success. It's predicated on like on a foundation that isn't mine. And the more I become successful like this, the riskier it becomes for me to go out in the world as I truly am. The riskier it would ever be for someone to think of me in any context other than like the joyful, like easy to go along with, like super energetic, like always has a smile, Nemo. And so there's just been this ongoing journey of both this like embracing who I am, and then as I've gone through the journey of embracing who I am, it's actually made all the other things that I've done that much more powerful. Like excellence has now come in for the ride, right? Because it's like, oh, and I mean, I want to be real with you. It's not an easy journey. It's not an easy, I'm not one of those people who's like, just be yourself. Cause I'm like, that's like one of the hardest things to do. It's not only in the difficulty of the action, but in terms of like the risk that comes along with it, like the perceived risk of it. But what I've found is like the levels of success that I've achieved afterwards have been far greater than that what I had beforehand. And my general thing is, because I get that, I'm like, oh, who else out there has something amazing to contribute to this world, but it's right now caught behind the mask, behind the trappings of how they think that they need to be able to show up in the world in order to still stay accepted, in order to not be cast aside, in order to be safe. And what would happen if that person felt the freedom to bring what they needed to bring out into the world? And then given that they feel that freedom, what if they actually did it? Because it's different to feel like, you know, there's a difference there. There's a difference to feel like someone say, oh, this is a safe space. And you're like, yeah, this does not, you might call it safe, but it doesn't feel safe. I can't do anything in this. I can't do anything with the safety you granted. So there's so much more to it. It's my life experience, but I wanted to take you to like where it actually like stemmed from and grew from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with me and with all of us. This powerful story. I feel like there's a lot there to unpack, a lot about, your identity, acceptance, belonging, fear of loneliness and rejection, and then also just the impact and the ripple effect that you can create when you do boldly step into who you are, claim your name as Niiamah, and all of those other things that come with that, right?
Yeah, I think it's important because it's like we know this here. Like leadership is lonely. Being an outlier, being the one person that's out there doing things different is lonely. There's an element of like I want to belong here, and I've done the things to like follow the path that everyone else said were the right ways to go, so on and so forth. And it's been miserable, and the results have not been that great. And then honestly, I just started like getting down on myself, as opposed to like allowing for like my thing is like, all right, if I'm shining, like what would happen if I didn't dim my light, and instead I turned that light up like on full blast, and like, oh, if it's too bright for the people that I'm with, that's cool, let me go to another place and like shine, like there are some dark places in the world that need light that right now they aren't getting because I'm afraid that I'm blinding the people I'm with. Let me move to the places where this light can shine and be like truly like desired, like I said, valued. And that's the game that I've been choosing to play.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, does that make sense, by the way? Because like this is like, it's like
sense.
it feels conceptual, but I'm like, but it's
No.
also just like how I like make
Totally.
decisions, how I live my life, and so forth.
Yeah, it's who you are. It's an alignment, and you're boldly proclaiming that, stepping into your purpose. I love
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna keep talking about your excellence.
Yeah,
Like,
we're good. It's cool
pouring
because
that over you.
yeah, no, because it's like I'm like, all right, if we're gonna like we're gonna receive here, right?
Yeah,
but I appreciate it because I like one of the things I like to do is to not be theoretical. I like to be like to be real, and I find different ways to get my clients an experience of what it is that they think that they want. So like this gives me a chance to be able to actually like be in the real like part of integrating a part of myself that I didn't actually see as actually being true. And I'm like, okay, so let me be in the practice of playing with excellence, and like this too is me. So go ahead, Abby. It feels really good.
Yeah. So formerly you had a career as an actuary. I'm so curious about it because you probably need to define what an actuary is for folks, because it's a kind of obscure field, but super technical, and you can explain it. I won't try.
Do you want me to right now or not?
You can. That's kind of what I think about like excellence too. Like you definitely got into a unique field and a craft, and you have those skills. So I'm just curious about that, like your journey to that, what it was like to be in it. And then you said earlier, you did all the traditional things. You got there, and then it wasn't great. It wasn't really living into your purpose. So yeah, I'm just curious about that journey to it, what it was like to be in it. And then maybe we can later go on to like how you've shifted out of that.
All right, so let's talk about that a lot, because I tend to, like, people ask about my story, I tend to go to like the real beginning. But like, out of college, I went to work at one of the top consulting firms on the planet. And I came in there. I had heard about this profession called being an actuary. Actuaries, they put a price on risk. That's the simplest way I can say it. They put a price on risk. So they're behind what you pay on your insurance premiums. I was working in the retirement field, so like companies would promise people pensions, not 401ks, but like companies were actually on the hook and said, based on like, I will pay you this amount of money, and they had to like put that money aside in order to pay out people in the future, right? They no longer offer pensions for a lot of that reason, but they were like the largest like liabilities on a company's balance sheet, and so it's my job along with my teams to calculate how much the organization needed to put away in order to legally have the right amount of money to pay people out. And then as people were retiring, we were making sure like, hey, like based on this thick plan document that says that like defines the years of service that you have, and has some kind of formula for what like the end number, how much you should be paid out in retirement. Oh, by the way, if you were here in January to April of 1974, this random thing happened and we gave everyone 20 extra, like it was super complicated. And there's a lot of regulations involved, a lot of like technical components to both do the retirement component of it all, and then on top of that, the actuarial component of it all with continuing education, so on and so forth. Like that was my world. One last thing I can say is that like it's incredibly math oriented, and I had to take exams while I was like in order to get my credentials. So like I almost look at it as like if you want to be a doctor, you have to go through like 8 years and you go through like med school there. This one here is like you're on the job and you have to keep taking exams along the ways, and so I mean it takes people 4 to 10 years to become an actuary with the number of exams that are there. So it was a highly rigorous like job. It's actually really funny. I was just talking to a client yesterday and we were working through a program that I have where we help people translate their past experiences to like what they're doing now. Because a lot of times they're like, what can I do with it? Like I was an engineer. Like, how does that even like have anything to do with what I'm doing now? And it was funny because it's funny you bring this up today, because literally I was like, oh, you do know that all I'm ever doing with you is what I did as an actuary. You're like, what? That was Excel sheets. That was like, that was like looking at like all these different decrements and all that stuff. Like it was super technical. How is the work that we're doing anywhere related to like what you're doing as a retirement actuarial consultant? And I'm like, let me count the ways, so we can talk about that in a little bit, but I really do believe in like everything that we've done in life has value. And it's up to us to like continue to like include that in what we do and continue to. I've just been building the same skill sets and applying them in different ways for years. Does that answer your question? Let me make sure I'm good with that.
Yeah, it does. I have. Did you have more to say? I have more.
No, I'm good. I have a lot more to say, and so I'm going to stop.
yeah, that's so good. I'm curious about how those things, really translate to what you're doing. And then something else that comes to mind is like you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just thinking of how you're describing this. You're basically calculating somebody's worth.
So I will correct that in a bit here, right? So what I'm doing here is we're basically saying what are the probabilities of a certain event happening in the future? And if that event happens, how much are we going to have to pay them based on whatever we've like, whatever the criteria is. In retirement, it's based on the formula. It might be like, if you're thinking about it from like an insurance thing, it might be like damage done to something, right? So there's some kind of criteria around it. And all I'm doing right now is saying like all these have future they're potential payments that could be made. Maybe if you're doing insurance, maybe you'll get in an accident in 6 months, or maybe it'll happen in a year, or maybe it'll happen in 3 years, or maybe it'll happen in 10 years. And it's like, if you've gone 9 years without having an accident, what's the probability that you'll make it the 10th year? It might be different than if you had an accident every single year for the last 9 years, right? So like, so I'm constantly, I'm putting a price on risk. That's
it has nothing to do with someone's worth.
Not at all.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking.
But maybe there's a connection here between like not liking the content and what you're doing now. You're like,
oh no, I can
value to people.
I can bring in some of this here. So like because this is really fresh here, and I have like literally this is like I recognize like this is one of my skill sets, like to help people again. Like it's not just see it, but to like embrace it and leverage it. Right? Like we talked to this person at the end of this, and she's an engineer. She's doing like new work as an entrepreneur, and she's like, I don't see how they all line up. And we talked, and by the end of it, there were tears going down, and she said, like, I just feel integrated. And that's what we need so that she can get out of her way and get back into the work, right? The world needs her and her experiences. And now we got that into alignment. So I'll talk a little bit about the actuary stuff here. The way I look at it is this, like one of the things I had to do as an actuary is we had data sets that came in from year to year, right? And we had to make sure that like as the data sets came in, we had to do this simple data reconciliation. It's a pretty common thing that like people do in many different types of jobs, right? Just if you're doing any kind of analytics, you can do some data reconciliation. Right. Well, part of the reconciliation process was to make sure like based on what we had previously and based on what we have currently, like does the information we have make sense? You know, some things are like small things, like someone's last name change. It's like, oh, what happened here? You know, let's investigate that. Oh, they got married, or we had a typo the last time. Great. You know, like which one is the right one, right? So there's a little bit of investigation that was there. But one of the things I love to think about is like, we had to do some mathematical calculations around some of the things. We're like, we expected this to grow. We had some assumption that this would have changed by about 5%. It actually ended up changing by like 50%. Like that's outside of our range when we do our analysis. Like it's too high of a gain. Like let's go and get curious about that. Right. For me, as a coach and the work that I do, like, and it's not even as a coach, like I think I do a lot of coaching. Right. But I think I would say almost like as a leader, you know, like where part of what I do is coach is I look at people and there's like this internal gain loss analysis that is taking place, you know, given who you were in the past, given the fact that you've done all these things in the past here. Now you're telling me that like you're stuck with this, or you've accomplished all this. And now you're giving me a scenario where you don't feel like you're enough to handle like this other thing, which honestly looks a lot smaller. Like when I do that gain loss here, something's off.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that to then start investigating. And I have this element of like that makes sense. Like that's reasonable. It doesn't have to be right, but that's like, we're just always looking for what's reasonable, right? Okay, that's plausible. Doesn't mean it's the actual thing, but it's plausible. And like I use that as like an example, like when I'm in coaching, like that's what that's all I'm listening for. I'm like, hey, we have some data, you know, and let's reconcile this thing, you know.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's great. Thank you for explaining that and really laying that out. So I'm like, how? I'm missing some information here.
Oh yeah. No, there's a lot of different things that I do. Like there's a lot of different things, but I think like the data rec and the gain loss analysis is something really easy to just like kind of catch on, where it's like, okay. It's the way I describe it is it's not what I was doing as an actuary that is carried over. It's who I was being as an actuarial consultant that is carried over. It's what made me successful as an actuarial consultant is what makes me successful. Like when I changed my career to learning and development, you know, I then changed it again to become an entrepreneur and then a coach, you know, like, and I'm doing the same things that made me successful in each of those different places with the brand new context to bigger and bigger problems.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Tell me a little bit more about, you know, that's your excellence, right? All those things that you just explained, that's your excellence. I just want to keep pounding that.
Yeah.
Pouring that over you.
I felt my shoulders just relaxing. I've even seen, I was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell me more about, you know, so you did all this work, you learned all these skills, you did all these certifications and continuing learning, and then, you know, what happened? Why did you feel like that wasn't the right thing for you? What made you move to learning and development and then entrepreneurship, moving to Singapore, you know, all those things to where you are today?
Okay, so a couple of different things happened, but I think that the general element was like, look, reality is this, and this is, I have to say this as honestly as I can. Gay Hendricks has this book that is called The Big Leap. And in The Big Leap, he has one of the sections there, he talks about 4 different zones. And the zones, like, there's like the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius, right? Are you familiar with this overall?
Yeah, we talked about it previously. And
Yeah. So like, so I think the in that book, one of my takeaways, there's a lot of other things that happen that talks about like when you hit like what people do when they hit their upper limits, right? It talks about there's a concept in there called the zone of excellence, and the zone of excellence is the part of you that like the things that you can do that you are actually get excellent results on, right? You put in a lot of effort and a lot of great things come out from it, right? But there's this rarefied space beyond that, which is the zone of genius, where it's like you actually don't put in hardly any effort and you get a ton of results from it, you know? And I think that what happens for me is that like at a certain point I learned how to learn. I think it goes back with that feeling of belonging. Like I learned like what I need to be able to like be successful in an environment fairly quickly. And there was a component of it that was like the actuary work, the math stuff fell in my zone of excellence, I could do it, so I was doing it, and I needed. I wasn't like no one else was doing it. I love, you said obscure. That was like music to my ears. You know, um, like when you say obscure and you think about excellence from that perspective, like that makes sense to me. I, um, I was an actuarial consultant, and most people most people had never even heard of an actuary, right? I sang in a barbershop chorus in New York City before I left New York. We were top 10 in the world, right? I would like, and I was the president at some point of that organization, right? Um, I play beach handball now, where I live now. Like no one knows about this sport, but the people that I play with, they're on like Team USA, So it's like, so there's this component of like while it may be obscure, while maybe people may not know, it's like in this space we're playing in like the most rarefied spaces of it all. And I think that like I've digressed a bit in terms of like one thing in terms of like how did you actually like go through this journey, but I think it is some of the continuity for me overall as well, which is like, look, I was good at doing the actuarial stuff. My heart wasn't in it. It was starting to show, and it was starting for me to like, it was time for me to go, right? But the biggest things about that was that it required, like, I grew up with parents from Ghana, like African parents. It's like, go be a doctor. I don't want to overgeneralize, but like, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be an engineer, right? Because those were the things that were really successful for them at their time. I got into a company like right out of college that most people spend their lives trying to get into at some point. And that was like where I started, And so I also had a career that is recession proof, that like, you get raises every time you pass an exam. Like you have a lot of like, there's a lot that's there. It's super stable. My parents are like, why would you ever leave this? Like, what are you doing? I think that was probably the biggest hurdle. I spent like, the biggest hurdle was like to then come in and say, no, actually, no, I'm doing this for me, regardless of what this might be seen like. And I'm moving into more alignment for me. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. In reality, you've met my wife. She's amazing. She lived in 4 different countries before I even met her. And I was not going to be the person who comes into her life and stop her from like continuing to be awesome that way. But I needed a job. I needed something that would give me the flexibility to go around the world and do this. And actuary wasn't going to get me there. I would have to learn new regulations. I would have to get new credentials, so on and so forth. So I chose to become an entrepreneur. When I chose to become an entrepreneur, it then took me to a place of saying like, okay, I want to learn my skill sets. So I'm going to do one of two things. I know that I want to have a learning-based business. So I'm either going to go and do any role at all in a learning company, a company where that's like the primary objective, or I'm going to do learning and development in any company. But I need to have one of the two things that line up. Turns out that I ended up doing learning and development at a tech consulting company, an advertising tech company, excuse me. And got involved in employee experience, and I started seeing like what it's like, what it actually takes to create an environment where people are celebrated. We met through an organization called Hobie. I mean, I'm going on for a bit here, but like this is what's actually
I love
together.
it. Keep going.
Okay, we met through an organization called Hobie, and because all these things all line up. I know I'm bouncing around y'all, but that's how my brain works.
Totally.
In Hobie, I was my wife invited me to come be a part of that for a time there. To come and facilitate. And I was probably like 26, 27 when I came to like lead this group of ambassadors of 10th graders, and it floored me because I was so like, I was in such environments where it's like hustle culture was the thing. Like you need to have all the right answers. You need to come out, like we were in a place where people were, and I'll use these words here, but they were celebrated for who they were. They got a chance to actually express like their thoughts. They're like normally in my school, I am teased about this or other things goes like here, but I finally get to be surrounded by other people who think like me, right? And right. I've grown beyond like-minded. I'm not interested in like-minded. I'm kind of bored by it. I look for different-minded, like-hearted. I'm like, if we're coming from the same place, I want us to have different experiences around it. So I think like that element of like, I needed some time, some location independence, while still being able to like I stumbled upon something at Hobie, then it kept getting reinforced in the different work environments that I was in. I started to work in that specifically around like, oh, how like the company I work for, they said your job is to help make sure that people can be their best self every day so they can do their best work every day. You know, I now go beyond best. I'm like, this feels too small. Integrity is very important to me. So I'm like, be their whole self. You know, like I bring a place, I like that's what I look for. I'm like, the wholeness of you is what's going to actually contribute towards things. But that's like the through line that got me from, you know, being an actuarial consultant all the way over to going to Singapore. And, you know, again, being able to go into new environments, I have a skill set of reimagining and reinventing myself and doing it over and over and over and over and over again until I iterated into like what was actually me and went from there.
That's so good. So good. A lot of those things that you shared, you know, get me really excited about your journey and how you've been able to reinvent and pivot and move, but take each of those experiences in alignment with your pursuit of who you are and your calling. Yeah. You mentioned Hobie. That's our mutual connection via your wife, Nicole. We love her. Hobie's a youth development organization where we put on leadership conferences for youth, and we have a curriculum built around the social change leadership model: personal leadership, group leadership, societal leadership, right? And you mentioned that as a pivotal part of your experience. You know, we're bringing youth who are outliers, who are a little bit different, right? And they come to this unique. They've been called out, identified as leaders, as change makers, and they're nominated for this conference, and they come together, and we put them all in the same room, and we create this space of like belonging, and we let them feel like they are special. They have something of value. We let them feel seen, right? And we encourage them to think about what's their impact in the world. What's the thing that is in front of you where there's a need, and what's your unique skill sets, and how can you leverage those to make a difference, however big or small, right? So what I love about hearing your story and what you're doing, and especially through your business, you're living those things out, right? You really are.
It's really, it's as you say it, I'm getting goosebumps, and I'm like, my heart is smiling. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like what you just described to me was such a special and unique thing. I hadn't experienced it before, you know, and that idea of taking these outliers, these 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, right, and bringing them into a space and being like, most other people think that you're weird for like wanting to contribute, or like, you know, finding ways to like organize, like, you know, a cancer run, you know, like to like raise money for this, like, but like you don't, like, this is just what you do. Come be around other people where this is just what they do, and rather than like, and then like see where else you can take it. Like that was it. Like that end question of like, what are you going to do with this is one of the biggest things that come from me. Right. It's like, it's not enough for me to just help people on my end. It's not enough for people to be like, oh, I've created a place where you can feel safe. It's like, so what are you going to do with that safety? You know? Oh, like, oh, I can help you be authentic. Yeah, I can help anyone be authentic. What are you going to do with that authenticity? Like that. And that's where like shaping the next era of humanity comes in for me. Cause it's like, okay, like we're going to make sure you own who you are. I call it owning your outlier, right? There's like a 3-stage like journey. It's like own your outlier, you know, blaze your trail and shape your world. In a lot of ways, it might be like, you know, the individual leadership, the group leadership, and the societal leadership, right?
I love it. I love it so much.
It's like it's because these are principles that are true, you know. Totally. The principles that are true, and so when you mentioned this program, when you mentioned this like, and you mentioned Hobie altogether, in a lot of ways, the impetuses that have been leading me through my life is like, it just sucks that I missed it when I was 16. You know, like I'm always, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, like in a lot of ways, I'm creating a Hobie for adults. you
Totally.
know. I just keeping it simple. Like it's like some people got a chance to get this, find out about this when they're 16. Some people are going to find out about this when they're 36. Totally fine, no matter what. Like they're let's make you shine and have you like put your efforts, put what you can contribute to the world out in the world, you know. And however we need to do that, whatever support you need, we got you. Like it's been done. It's only ever been done by people who have like gone against the norm, who've been outliers. Like that's it. Like totally different. If you're looking to shape your world into something new and fresh and beyond what it is, we need to start from a fundamentally different place. And you know, it's not going to take someone that's been looking at things in the same way as everyone else, or has had an experience as the same way as everyone else, to make those kinds of shifts. We'll get improvements, you know, but it's different than actually like co-creating something like just fundamentally better.
Yeah, totally. And even for someone who went through Hobie as a 16-year-old and has been a volunteer for 10 plus years after, you go through this like different period in your 20s where things get a little lost. You're like, oh, I had all this self-efficacy. I had this like this confidence and this I knowing of who I am and what I can do in the world. But then you grow up and you become an adult and you get a little, things aren't as easy.
No,
as they were when you
not.
were in high school. People didn't just in high school I came with all this energy and passion and people supported me like, you want to start this thing? Yeah, go for it. We're all for you. And you get lots of awards and all this stuff. And then you get into being an adult and things are hard. You can't like go to that leadership position right away. So I'm in this space of almost turning 30 and trying to redirect my path and move into learning and development so that I can do the things that I love through Hobie in my workspace, right?
Can I call out one thing real quick with this?
Yeah.
We are having a podcast that you initiated, right? That like you didn't have to go through any hoops or anything like that. And I'm the person that's like, I'm the one that's like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Like, how do I go and support that? It is out there. And you're still that person, you know? I think that like a lot of the organizations, a lot of the structures, a lot of the systems in place, like make it very hard for those of us that are self-starters that like it's like that like have it that find just as much blend in like taking it easy and enjoying a relaxing day as they do like organizing a hackathon or like like speaking at the UN, like there are spaces for us. It just may not be in the traditional path, and that's so I'm really I feel really honored to be in this conversation with you, to have you playing in this way and saying like, this is I don't need approval for this. I'm just coming in and I'm doing what I do, which is to find another way to contribute to this world. I see you for that. And I really appreciate you like letting me be a part of this journey here, because it is the actual, like, it's the promise. That's the thing. That like literally right before we came here, it's like, let's just hit start, It wasn't like, there wasn't this big thing in your head about like, how's it going to be the right way or all this stuff. You're just like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this. Like, you were already ready for this. So like, like my general thing is like you're living it in just a very different way right now, but you are absolutely living it. I really want to honor you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let that sink in a little bit. But yes, that I say that to say there's a need for it, and the work that you're doing is good and important. I want to touch on, why coaching. I know you pivoted to being an entrepreneur or learning and development space and being an entrepreneur, and then you found this niche in coaching.
Yeah.
And coaching I've heard about it recently a lot, like sitting under the realm of learning and development, and it's related a type of leadership development as well. Why this particular practice? Why is it appealing to you, and why do you think it's effective? Why is it what you're doing?
Yeah. So let me put it in this context here. Oh, so it starts with what I believe, right? And what I like, part of what I like, let me just check in on with it. The reality is for me, I have found that most of the places that I've been in have been people in power trying to in one way, shape, or form uh, dictate what is acceptable or what isn't acceptable, and honestly haven't like shaping me into whatever it is that their vision is, without necessarily me having the space to go for it. Right. I've spent years as a consultant, even after I left the consulting company I went to go and do, like I was a consultant in learning and development for inside the organization, right? It was like literally my title for a while. So I know how to problem solve, right? Problem solving is all about conversion to like the right answer. The problem with problem solving is that like we live in a world where there is no real right or wrong answer, right? It's there, like literally everything's just made up. Like the fact that we go to school and we go through this process, it's a made up process. We all collectively agreed on it. Well, like generally speaking, but like some people are like, I don't need to go through that process. Um, like there's a fundamental element of like we just made this up, you know, like there's no real thing as a country. It is not like I think there's like a great book. It's called Sapiens by Yuri. I can't remember his last name, but it's a popular book and it's a really great one. And it talks about like these like the social constructs that we take on, the social agreements that we take on, you know, and so that's one thing for me where like I'm like there is no real answer. So that part was really fascinating. So what do you do in a world where like everything is like socially agreed upon? A world that has volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and like there's a lot of different things that are going on, right? Ambiguity. I remember when I was like, there's a time where VUCA was a thing, VUCA, it's like, how do you come up with solutions in a rapidly changing environment, which is only getting more connected, becoming like more global, at the same time becoming more local at the same, like you can see like these push pulls happening here. Like we as a society are like having like we have the technology that has brought us together, but we don't have like we haven't had the social technology, like how do we interact, right? So I was seeing a lot of division taking place in my world. I was seeing a lot of people choosing to like uh, choosing to uh, judge people based on like high level demographics, the simplest things like the race, the sexual orientation, the religion, like sure, there's that, right? And that's what a lot of people focus on. Then they got into like politics, like that was like a big like thing in the face. Like 2016 was when I like first was like, I'm like, there's something else going on here that we're not addressing. Where someone yesterday was like your best friend, the next day we're torn apart, and we weren't coming together. We just didn't know how to come together. And there was something about the process of coaching that I think I was always doing it, right? I think I've always been someone that's trying to find how do we get to collaborative results. I went to school for economics, did behavioral economics, as well as the thing that I really started to love. And I really started asking the question of like, why do people make the choices that they choose? Like, if we think we're as rational as we are, like, how do we actually get things like, and as someone who like was in the right school, but like wasn't doing all the things everyone else was doing, I was like, why can't I get myself to do this? You know? So all these things, like I've always been fascinated with like how do we actually make decisions, what actually leads to things. I thought it was about being more productive and so on and so forth. But when I started asking questions, and as my questions got more and more powerful, and as I stopped leading people to a specific result and instead just allowed them the space to like have things emerge for them, like I started to recognize something different. One, people will come to me with questions like looking for answers that I didn't have. But if I had really powerful questions, they would actually discover that they had the answer themselves, or they knew exactly what to do to go get the answer that they needed. Right. And as I saw that more and more, I found out that it was called coaching. And then I coupled that element of like, oh, we're actually getting results with this here, with the component of, it was like questions and listening, deep listening, and hearing what isn't being said, and seeing what someone's not trying to show you, and asking like the dumb question, or asking the uncomfortable question, or the confronting question. Like, it was bringing people together. I learned more about people. I got closer to people in 5 minutes. I've had people walk in and about 30 seconds after talking to me start crying, because that comes from a different realm of conversation. It comes from a different realm of being with people. And so I look at coaching. I rarely call myself a coach, and that's why I look back to the leadership part of it, because I'm like, I do believe that coaching is a fundamental vehicle of change to help us like be with each other and navigate the tumultuous times that we all happen to like grow up in. That's why coaching for me.
Wow. That's good. Definitely coming to coaching because you think it's the most impactful vehicle for change.
Yeah. Or it's really like staying with coaching. Like I was coaching and I was like, oh, there's this thing called coaching and this is what it is. And I had done other coaching where it's really just problem solving. It's really consulting called coaching, you know.
Yeah.
But like the solid coaching, I do deep coaching, the one that allows people to like really explore and to have things emerge.
Yeah.
Like I'll call it emerging coaching right now. It is it's a powerful tool, and it's a uniting tool.
Mm. Mm. Tell me a little bit more about that, and maybe just other intentions behind the methodologies you use in your coaching style, and how those things bring about transformation in the folks you're working with.
I'm happy to do that. I'm going to have to step out really soon. So let me make sure I answer that. Are there any other questions you have too? Let me make sure that I can capture that. Otherwise,
the only other one was just about bringing community together.
Okay.
You know, coaching kind of an individual thing, but you bring community and work with.
Okay. So let's talk about here, because they are related. All right.
Yeah.
So the first part here around like coaching as a tool for transformation. The components for me around this year are in the way in where my coaching leads to. Oftentimes the barrier to someone's success is themselves. And it's not the external environment, it is themselves. Now the external environment may not make it easy, right? But do they have the courage to do that, like that which is not the norm, right? Like you're going through a process right now where you're like, I'm looking to really get involved in learning development, but you had the courage to go off and create a podcast, and which is giving you a platform to go do whatever it is you want. And maybe it'll put you inside of an organization, maybe work with multiple, who knows, right? But like the all you do is hit record, you know, but there's an internal process that hey, can I actually get to that point? Right.
Right.
I also find that people don't really know who they are. They know who they've been told to be, and they may be incredibly successful at being that. But like when given an opportunity to really talk about their own goals, their own desires, why they do things, what they're about in the world, like so on and so forth, they start to realize that like, wait, I haven't been living my life. I've been living the life that someone had like told me I was supposed to live, and I've done a great job with it. But it is absolutely scary to figure out like what it is that I want, and even scarier to then go for it, because like I know that I've gained success. There's some kind of safety and stability here. It's suffocating and I feel trapped, but I also know that I'm still alive. What if I go on this other thing and everything goes into disarray? And spoiler alert, it often does for a bit. And then it's the process of getting through onto the other side that's when you end up like having your own levels of foundation, right? And being able to grow from there. So I've just found coaching to be it is transformative. I think the thing is just someone that said Peter Block, he's someone I go to, and this actually ties to the community part of it. He said questions are more powerful than answers. You know, and I think that's really it. Like I'm here to I'm here to bring together, not create, but bring together. I think it already exists. We're just out in our own pockets. Bring together a truly inclusive and empowered world. True inclusion to me is a world where everyone is celebrated and valued. Inclusion is not just like you're here. It's like, oh, because you're here, Abby, now we get to do this. Come on in. Thank you for being here. What do you have to contribute? Oh, I can't wait to have that in there. Inclusion side by side and be like, well, Abby, you can be in the room, like it's fine, but like we're gonna all go and do this other thing here, or you have to prove to us that you like that's not it. And I don't think people really get that. Like true inclusion is celebration and valuing, and in a truly empowered world, coaching's incredibly empowering. And what I love about coaching being empowering is that it's not rah cheerleader you, right? And this is why I try not to converse and answer and give people like all their answers all the time, because that can be very disempowering. It says, hey, like actually you have my answer. I can't do this on my own. So like I need to come to you. I don't work with any person who needs me. I work with people who want me, but not who needs me. And I think that's where like coaching and like being a methodologist based on questions and allowing that person to come to the realizations on their own. In some cases look slower, but in the grand scheme are always faster, because it's not just empowered, they are transformed. They can't help but be awesome in this new way, right? Because it's like, this is who I am now, and that's something really special. And I've been taking coaching. You want to talk about community? Mind if I bring that in?
Yeah. So
for me, when I look at individual transformation and community transformation, there are parallels to it. They're different, the focus is different, but like the transformation process is similar, right? How do you get people in a community to talk to each other, to ask each other, to be curious about each other, to challenge their own norms, and to get to know parts of themselves or people that they have pushed out? On an individual basis, when I'm coaching someone, they'd be like, oh, this thing that I do, I'm really good despite it. And it's like, actually, that's part of why you're successful. So there's a part of them that has been fragmented off. In our communities here, we do the same thing with each other. We take a glance at someone like, oh, this person doesn't have any, this person may be dangerous, it doesn't have any value, it's going to be a waste of my time, so on and so forth. And they may actually have like an experience or the solution or the connection to get you what it is that you're looking for, right? So it's like, so this is happening on an interpersonal level versus an interpersonal level, right? Or intrapersonal. I love the book. Peter Block wrote a great book. It's called Community, The Structure of Belonging. And I love that book because it was just coaching on the community level. It was organizing spaces and then asking powerful questions, but getting the community to answer those questions for themselves. Instead of being the leader and saying, this is the direction we're heading, it's being the leader and saying, like, it says leadership is convenient. Convenient is leadership. It's the person that's saying, we need to have a conversation about this. And it's not you talking to me as a leader, it's you talking to each other to see what we are all committed to. And what are the great ideas here that like light us up? And let's get that out into the world. What does this community really need? And the last thing that really like shines through for me is this idea of, and it's I boil it down to like, you need to model the future that you want to see. All right, model the future you want to see, and that was one of the strong components of that book that I think carries through on an individual basis and a community basis. Right. It's like in a one-on-one conversation, for me, the future I want to see is a world where everyone's seen, celebrated, and valued for who they are. So in every one-on-one conversation, I'm doing that. But when I'm bringing together people, I'm also doing that. And I'm making sure that they are doing that. And we're finding the places that don't seem like they can be seen, and we're celebrating and valuing that, And it's about like this idea of like, in every microcosm of an experience, regardless of if the world can experience it, can your world experience it in that one moment? And I love bringing the community of outliers together, because there's a higher level of belonging that they don't normally get a chance to experience, and then we get to cut through the who should I be? And instead we just get to be inspired and intimidated and grow from one another. And be like, oh wait, you did that at age 17? I'm trying to get that done now in my mid-30s. I thought it was this big deal, but apparently it can be done by a teenager. Let's go. Like, like that's the world that I look at. There's experiences that I have. And when I bring together community, it's a chance for us to have in a microcosm what could be available to the whole world should we continue to expand this out one conversation, one experience, like at a time.
Wow. Yeah. As I hear you talk through all of that, you're really describing your foundational pillars again, right? You're talking about owning your outlier, self-knowledge, self-discovery, embracing the true essence of your purpose and your values and who you are in the world, your experiences, and breaking down those barriers that keep us from embracing who we are and wanting to, hide and fit in, right? And you're enabling folks to shift their mindsets to being able to stand out, and then you're inviting them into that second phase of blazing your trail, where you call them out and to being a leader, to standing out, to fitting out, right? And it's a little lonely as they try to blaze that trail on their own. Of course, they want to bring in some community, bring in some people to follow them, but it doesn't always happen so easily. And even when you're in a leadership position, it's lonely. So the other aspect is you're bringing like-minded. I forget the term you used earlier.
Oh yeah, it's different-minded,
like-hearted.
Yeah.
Different-minded, like-hearted folks together to have those spaces of belonging and knowing and working through those challenges together, to be who they are together in the world, right? Yeah. But then separate as they go back into their communities, their unique trails, and as they think about how they shape their world, what they wish to see in the world, what unique set of gifts and skills that they have to contribute. So I love all of that. Really quickly.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing on this here, because like as you're talking, like for me, it's if you ever watch any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's I have behind me is a picture of Nick Fury. Here's one of the bobbleheads I have. I think my kid took the other one around here, but I remind myself that I'm Nick Fury, right? It's like I'm not Captain America. My job is to go out into is to assemble a team, to bring together a team of people, of superheroes, right? I call them outliers, right? But they're able to it's almost, they have superhuman skills to be able to get like the results that they have. I think of it as extraordinary individuals, right? And at the end of it, like they're not extraordinary, they're extraordinary. They're just people like me and you, like doing something outrageous or something incredible. It's just a Tuesday for them. Like they're just they're extraordinary, and they're just superhuman, like it's that element there where it's like there's nothing more going on but except that they're just being them. And I look at this thing from like the side of it, like my job is to go into each of their individual movies, let them do their thing. People are there for that specific movie, but they'll stay to find out, like they'll watch through all the credits to then go and see that their person has been tapped to come and play in an even larger game with a group of other people, taking on things that we couldn't take on alone. Like that's what drives me. That's where it comes to. When I think about shaping our world, when I think about like blazing your trail, it's like, okay, if you own who you are, how do you actually figure out how to implement that into everything you do so they can work with other people? You can create externally with that. When you're shaping your world, like how do we deepen your influence? How do we elevate your impact? And how do we help make sure that you're leading other people towards like what else is taking place here? So there's the whole component of this year is being able to like just keep like organizing these extraordinary superhuman people, and just keep lifting them up and giving them ways to say like, hey, you're a Cyclops, like use your like laser eyes, stop trying to fly, Cyclops, like just use your eyes, like, and you're like, it's these components here where it's like, like we don't live in a world where we can see all of our superpowers as distinctly as like the comic books make them out to see, but we have them. And if we choose to come out and use them and identify and bring it up to life, we can really take on some great things. We can solve some amazing problems, but even better than that, we can generate and create some amazing possibilities. I appreciate you, because I don't always talk about it in this context, but it's, again, I have a lot of driving imagery that determines how I move forward. And that's it. I really want to thank you, because I haven't talked about superhuman in that way. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Like, they're just real people. They have ups and downs. They have deaths in the family. They doubt themselves. Like, it's one of the things that's difficult about like talking about this stuff here, and the reason that authenticity is hard sometimes, because it's like we don't talk about the challenges of what it actually means to be authentic, and how that actually plays itself out. So like, I think that's why I love extraordinary and superhuman, because it's just like they're people, Yes, they're doing great things out in the world, but they're just people, and they need support like everyone else, and they need love like everyone else, and they doubt themselves like everyone else. And most other people might put them on a pedestal or outcast them out to the side, and so on and so forth. And it's like, actually, I see the brilliance in you over and over and over again. And it's not just for me to see it. It's now that I want to make sure you see it. And given that you see it, like, what do you want to do with it? How can we go and contribute to that out in the world?
Totally. Wow. So good. Niiamah, it's been such a pleasure to be here with you, chat, hear your story. Thank you for who you are, how you're showing up in the world. Thank you for your excellence. Thank you for seeing people, valuing people, celebrating who they are. Thank you, Niiamah, for championing the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity.
Thank you for being one of those leaders, Abby.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.